Forbes counted 140 Russian billionaires this year. Every single one gets called an oligarch. France has 43 billionaires of its own. Nobody has ever called Bernard Arnault an oligarch, not once. That's not an accident. It's a choice somebody made, and it's been made on purpose since 1996. So what actually separates an oligarch from a billionaire? Same yachts, same offshore accounts, same absurd square footage. The dictionary definition doesn't even mention Russia. So where did the split come from, and why does it only ever seem to apply to one passport? Stick around, because by the end of this, you'll never hear the word the same way again. Start with the Greek. Oligoi, the few, archein, to rule, oligarchy, rule by a small handful of people using wealth as the mechanism. That's it, no nationality attached. Ancient Athens used the word to describe itself sometimes, when a handful of rich families ran the show instead of the assembly. So here's the first thing almost nobody tells you. There is nothing intrinsically Russian about the word oligarch. It's a category of power. Russia didn't invent it. Russia just became, by far, its most famous modern example. Rewind to 1995. The Soviet Union is 4 years gone. Boris Yeltsin is broke, unpopular, and staring at single-digit approval ratings, with an election coming and a communist comeback looking likely. So a small group of bankers, 7 of them, informally called the Gang of Seven, cuts a deal known as loans for shares. They lend the state cash it desperately needs. In return, they get to run the auctions for Russia's biggest state assets, oil fields, mining giants, telecom networks. Auctions they also happen to control. The prices are a joke. Oil major Yukos, worth billions, changes hands for a few $100 million. Nickel giant Norilsk goes to Vladimir Putin for a fraction of its value, through an auction Putin's own bank happened to be running. Boris Berezovsky picks up a stake in Sibneft the same way. Mikhail Khodorkovsky ends up controlling Yukos itself. In exchange, the bankers turn their newly acquired TV networks into a re-election machine for Yeltsin. He wins in '96, barely. They keep their empires. That's the moment oligarch stops being a Greek philosophy term and becomes a job title. Berezovsky is widely credited as the first man the world actually applied it to. Roman Abramovich sold his Sibneft stake back to the state for over $13 billion in 2005. That fortune bought him a level of access to the Kremlin that let him operate as a quiet fixer between Moscow and the West for 2 decades. He bought Chelsea Football Club in 2003. He lost it by force in 2022 under UK sanctions, specifically for what the government called his relationship to Putin. Oleg Deripaska built Rusal into the world's second largest aluminum producer through the brutal aluminum wars of the 90s, a fight so violent it had an actual body count. He sat on Kremlin economic councils for years. He was sanctioned by the US Treasury in 2018 by name. Now put Bernard Arnault next to them, LVMH, the richest man in Europe most years. He lobbies, he funds, he has dinner with presidents, or Jeff Bezos, who owns a newspaper that covers the government that regulates his company. Structurally, all 4 men convert money into influence over a state. Only 2 of them ever get called oligarchs, and it was never about the size of the fortune. Here's the part almost every other video on this topic skips entirely. Economist Robert Reich spent years arguing in plain language that America has its own oligarchs, people like the megadonors and tech founders who bankroll campaigns, staff transition teams, and occasionally run federal agencies themselves. Same mechanism as Russia in miniature, wealth converted directly into control of the state. He's not the only one saying it. It's just a much harder sell, because the word carries a foreign accent in most people's heads. The numbers tell a strange story side by side. Russia's wealthiest have moved roughly $200 billion offshore, north of half of everything they own. America's 765 billionaires have parked something like $2 trillion in tax havens, a bigger raw number, but only about 4% of their total wealth. Different scale, different proportion, same instinct. Keep the money somewhere the state can't easily touch it. So if the behavior rhymes this closely, why does only one group get the label? Because in February of 2022, the word stopped being journalism and became law. After the invasion of Ukraine, the US, UK, and EU didn't sanction rich Russians. They sanctioned oligarchs. The term shows up in the actual legal text, in Treasury Department press releases, in the EU's own designation criteria, individuals who benefit from or support the Russian government. Abramovich lost Chelsea under that exact wording. Deripaska's aluminum empire got frozen the same way. At that point, oligarch isn't just describing wealth anymore. It's a legal category with a passport requirement built in. You can be every bit as politically entangled as Deripaska and never hear the word applied to you, as long as you're not standing next to Putin when the sanctions list gets written. That's the actual answer to the question in the title. It's not about how the money was made. It's about who currently benefits from calling it out loud. Think about what each word quietly implies. Billionaire says, an individual succeeded, maybe controversially, but within the system. Oligarch says, this person's wealth is a threat to the system itself, worth freezing, worth sanctioning, worth treating as a national security question rather than a Forbes list entry. That's an enormously useful distinction to have available. During a war, it lets governments freeze specific assets fast, with public support behind it. But it also means the word gets deployed selectively, not evenly. Elon Musk sat inside a US federal agency. He helped fund the campaign that installed. Nobody sanctioned him. Nobody froze his companies. The word simply wasn't reached for, because reaching for it would mean admitting the mechanism runs both ways. So the real story here was never really about Russia specifically. It's about what a society is willing to call money once that money starts running the government instead of just spending in it. Russia got the label because a war made it politically necessary and legally convenient. Everywhere else, the exact same mechanism is still just called success, right up until the day it stops being convenient to call it that. The next time you hear oligarch, ask the question this video just asked. Is that describing what he did, or just where he happens to be from? So here's the actual debate. Is there a Western billionaire right now who's crossed the same line Berezovsky did in '96? Money bought directly into state power. Drop the name in the comments. I want to see who people actually land on. And if this kind of the word is doing more work than you think, breakdown is your thing, subscribe. There's a lot more of these coming.